Just so folks have context, to me, I think you're just an outstanding individual and someone who
Oh,
is just amazing when it comes to design systems, when it comes to just designing overall, engineering, and just really a great systems thinker and someone who can really think big and then take it all and break it down into just action,
right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I think whoever's listening, right, will be very fortunate to get some awesome things from you.
Oh man, you're raising me up too high.
Yeah, man, that's what we do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, y'all, this is the Mapping Values Pod.
Hmm.
Welcome. Cool, dude. So yeah, like I mentioned, to give folks context, so I just went onto your LinkedIn and just want to highlight some things. Q
Yeah.
is architecting design systems and UI infrastructure across multiple applications, product surface areas, and contributing to and organizing company-wide knowledge base of operations and processes. Does
Sounds
that
about
sound
right.
good? Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds
Anything you
about
want to
right.
add?
No, that's about covers like the high level of what I do. Yeah.
Nice, awesome,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, and just an amazing person again. Yeah. So that's not on LinkedIn, but it should be. Cool.
I'll be sure to make an edit.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. So yeah, just diving in, right?
Hmm.
Like I mentioned, this is a conversation about just design systems and how to map it back to, business value. The
Yeah.
entire pod is going to be about mapping things back to value, right?
Yep.
Because I think it's very easy to get lost in execution and making and
Hmm.
losing sight of one of the end goals, right? Like it needs to translate to value.
Hmm. Makes sense.
So that's what a lot of the conversation is going to be about. And to really kick things off, figured, we can start at the foundational level
Hmm.
and kind of just want to get your thoughts on, the inherent purpose and value of a design system
Yeah.
and how it directly contributes to overall business value.
Yeah. I'm gonna first start off by saying everything I'm about to share is just my own opinion, and I
Yeah.
may be very wrong on whatever it is I'm saying, but this
Yeah.
is just my own personal opinion and experience from all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the promise of something like a design system is for you to deliver UI faster
Mhm.
and more consistently of high quality.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the promise, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. And then delivering that high quality UI at a nice pace. Curious, like from your perspective, right, and
Hmm.
your POV. Yeah, what does it lead to in terms of just like product value, business value?
It means that like there's a lot of things that you kind of don't have to worry about anymore,
Yeah.
right? And design systems, UI, like UI, especially in our space, I feel like oftentimes it's a little bit abstract because
Mhm.
it's not physical.
Yeah.
So it's harder for sometimes even just to talk about it. So I like to use analogies a lot, and are
Nice.
related to things that most people kind of know, and also areas of interest for me. And the best intersect of those two things usually happens to be food.
It's
Um,
always a good
yeah, it's always
narrative.
everyone eats food, right? People like food, but
Yeah.
more importantly, when it comes to food and business, that's when you start thinking about things like either processing, manufacturing, agriculture, or the restaurant industry. So if we
Yeah.
were to think about the restaurant industry, people generally, I think, know how restaurants work. If you were the restaurant owner or an owner of like a large empire of restaurants, the thing you don't want to have to think about it, just like, are my ingredients right? You just
Yeah.
assume, like, once you figure out which ketchups and which pickles and all that kind of stuff you've chosen, it should just kind of work, and therefore you can focus on other things like
Yeah.
market share of certain segments of food categories, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like less that in terms of how it maps back to business value, these things that you deliver as part of a design system or within the world of restaurants, like the ingredients of the food themselves, it's like it's important stuff, but then it's also stuff that you don't really have to think about too much anymore and to focus more on business.
Yeah.
That's
That's
how I would
awesome.
look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
funny when you mentioned food and as you were explaining, the first thing that came to mind, and as you were explaining, stayed in mind, was really the Bear. Have you seen that TV show?
The bear? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So where he
It's
gets in, his brother's restaurant is a mess, and then he brings
yeah,
order, and then
yeah,
the
yeah,
ingredients, everything, and their
yeah,
goal is really Michelin star quality
yeah. I haven't.
and
I've only
level.
seen the first season. Still working
Yeah,
through that. But like back in the day, before I started working, making money on the internet, building UI and drawing rectangles.
yeah,
I worked in the restaurant industry for several years. So,
yeah,
and I can attest that what you're seeing in the bear is pretty accurate when it
yeah,
comes to being on the line, rush time, being very strategic in
yeah,
terms of how you would organize orders and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
So
And
I have a soft spot for seeing things like that.
nice, yeah. I mean, when I watched it, I was stressed the whole time. It felt
Oh
like
yeah,
I was in
yeah,
the
that's how it
kitchen with
feels.
them. Yeah. Yeah. What's really awesome from everything that you're saying, it sounds like, overall, getting the system, getting the kitchen in place, getting the
hmm
ingredients right, enabling folks to be able to pull from whatever ingredient is within the kitchen, right, to
hmm
construct a great product, which is, the meal that goes out to the customers.
hmm
Design systems is really about setting up that environment that enables the great cooking to happen.
Yeah, and that's like if you were to think about um priorities or things that people most often think about, like within the world of food, ingredients is definitely the thing that comes to mind. But second to that, and very much required for operating a restaurant to make food, is like where do you put those ingredients?
Yeah.
How do you like what do you cook? What do you use to cook them with?
Yeah.
How do you produce more ingredients? Like the things that surround the ingredients themselves, I think, are also part of the story. And
Mm,
that's as it relates to our world, that's usually a lot of process stuff
yeah.
that I think our industry in particular is still trying to get a lot better at. We're pretty
Yeah.
immature, in my opinion, compared to some of the other industries out there. A good one would
Yeah.
be automotive and manufacturing, for example.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah, they
curious
have that
what,
stuff down to a science.
yeah. Yeah. I wonder if, as soon as you shared that, I just thought of Tesla and if they actually follow the same process. If they, I mean, I know they have their own process and it's
Sure.
like, you know, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I actually don't know too much about Tesla's processes compared to like the one I'm most familiar with is Toyota.
Yeah.
The Toyota production system, TPS, lean manufacturing, like that kind of stuff is something I've just naturally fallen into as I've gotten more into the world of like understanding how it is people work and
Yeah.
how can people work better and how can I bring some of those ideas into how I work.
Yeah.
Um, which has been great. Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you have you checked out the Toyota book? I forget what it's called, but it's like the Toyota five
Probably.
steps to
I
Toyota
think I know what you're
something.
talking about. Here's an
Yeah.
interesting thing when it comes to me and books. I never really read the books directly. I always
Yeah.
learn ideas and stuff around the books. The latest one would be Atomic Habits from James Clear. I actually read that book or listened to it from Audible. But before
Yeah.
that, like the idea of like you don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, all the little things that he's talked about. I kind of learned indirectly from other people sharing their
Yeah.
insights or researching little ideas that were mentioned in the book. So when it came time for me to listen to the book, I was like, it was more of a review,
Yeah.
and I for some reason that seems to be how I like to read
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. I mean, that's a
So
really, yeah,
yeah.
that's a great way to read, just, or just consume content. It's funny that quote that you mentioned, I
Mm.
recall you sharing with me like a year ago.
Yeah,
And I've been using it a lot, like
yeah,
we fall to the level of our systems,
yeah, yeah,
just because it's 100% true.
yep.
Someone actually recently brought up the Atomic Habits
Mm-hmm.
book. And yeah, I was just thinking back to the conversations we've had around systems and how, yeah, it's like one to one.
Yeah, for
So
sure, for sure.
yeah, yeah,
And like the thing that's interesting within the world of design systems now is I feel like it's very easy to overcomplicate it.
mm,
Oftentimes it is. But if I were to offer a simplification of what it is, as it relates to our space and delivering UI, because it's
yeah,
slightly different within the world of, say, animation, The design system is a thing that lets you make stuff that looks like all your other stuff using the stuff you already got. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to get any more complicated than that. Sure,
Yeah.
there's ways that you would define tokens and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Those are the implementation details. But don't
Yeah.
lose sight of what the thing is and what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm gonna, after this recording,
Sure.
when it's time to post, I'm just gonna like get that snippet and
Yeah,
then post
yeah,
it
go
all
for
over
it.
the place. Cool. And just speaking of stuff, like design systems, and I'm curious just your perspective on the current state of design systems, right?
Hmm.
Within today's landscape, within just design, product, building
Yeah,
communities.
like I feel like there's been an over-index in componentry.
Mm, yeah.
It's a very important part of the whole process. It's required, but I think there's an over-index on componentry and a lack of focus on process.
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
So when it comes to like the food example is like you focus so much on, I don't know, farm to table organic tomatoes and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Cool. How do you use the tomato in your dishes? We haven't figured that out yet. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a definitely an over indexing componentry. Not everyone.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot more we need to discover and implement in the world of process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I always feel like, design systems always feels like a chicken or egg thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
which do you invest in first? Building out the design system, or actually like getting into the product making and then creating the system as you go.
You get into the product, you make and create every single time.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the thing from a business perspective, mapping into business. That's the thing that you actually make money from.
Yep.
Unless
Yeah.
design systems is your business, then it almost always kind of follows the product.
Yeah.
Unless you have a very, very clear vision of how it is you want to start it. But
Yeah.
there's always this push and pull relationship between the design system stuff and your product.
Yeah.
Because like I provided a simplified snippet of what a design system is, but here's another one, and that is it is basically a standardization of your philosophy of work as
Mm,
it relates to user interfaces. So, if you have a philosophy, an idea, a concept of how it is UI is supposed to look, feel, and work
yeah.
together, you need to standardize that in some form. When it
Yeah.
comes to visual things that you can see, that comes down to the UI components. But when it comes to combining them in appropriate ways,
Yeah.
that's where documentation and process will come into play.
Yeah.
And how it is designers and engineers will be able to work with your stuff to make things. Again, that's more of a process thing. Yeah, so that's another way that I would look at it. But going back to your original question, chicken egg, make the thing first, then make it
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. While you were sharing, yeah, I love it. Just because, I think it gets a little bit spicy because two things. I know, like what you shared was pretty, yeah, of course. But I'm saying spicy because, I'm sure there are folks who believe a design system is a product, right? So you
It
spend
can
a lot
be,
of
yeah,
time
yeah, yeah.
on the product, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you try to ensure that you can show the ROI by measuring,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in some orgs, I believe they turn it into this entire theater,
Mm-hmm.
where you're investing a lot of energy into
Mm-hmm.
building out this product,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where what I kind of heard you say to some degree, and let me know if this is incorrect, is, like you build as you go. And
Yep.
overall, in that documentation and process, this is a very basic way to think about it. And in no way do I mean this to, I don't want to like hurt anyone's feelings, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a design system to some degree. It could be viewed as a digital style guide, right? If
Yeah,
you
that's
will.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So here's another example, drawing from the world of animation, or animation, 2D, 3D, doesn't matter. So if we were to think about the world of 3D animation, like say Frozen 2, like one of the more later Disney movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
An over-indexing on componentry would look like this. you spend all your time trying to create the perfect Elsa 3D model, right? Make sure it's good, the hair physics and everything is like perfect on this thing, right? But the reality is you may not be able to use this 3D model everywhere.
Yeah.
There could be stylized 2D versions of frozen things on lunchboxes, on like calendars, on for some reason promotional material you would find in the fruit aisle. Usually, for some reason, I see a lot of like Despicable Me and Minions on like bananas and stuff. But anyway,
they're everywhere.
Yeah. But like, you may not be able to use that asset everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that behind the asset is like, what should Elsa look like? What should Elsa look like? How should she move?
Yeah.
How does she work within the world of Frozen?
Yeah.
And it's like the concept is documented, the standards are defined, and it's based on the artist to interpret that to create the asset they need for the application they need it in.
Yeah.
For the 3D model for the movie, a 2D illustration for something else, right? But the understanding of who Elsa is, how she should behave, that is captured in the style guide of the character.
Yeah.
That is the design system.
Yeah.
Not the 3D model of Elsa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. What I kind of just interpreting everything back, what I heard you, what I'm hearing is, end of day, it actually ties back nicely to one of the things I agree with, right? With folks when they talk about design systems, which is, it should free up the artist or, the maker to really just get into crafting the thing that needs to be done from maybe an experience perspective, right? So once you have all these things documented, you have components, you have just a library and process in place. The folks who are building, the product manager, the product designer, the product engineer, whoever else needs to be involved, right? From the cross-functional team, they can just get to talking about the task at hand. Like, what do we want to do here? Why is it important? And how are we going to do this thing? And it's less about rebuilding, components. You focus on the bigger picture, the flow. What is this thing that we're trying to put together?
What is the problem you're trying to solve?
Exactly. And then it's like, yeah, cool. Okay, we're going to solve this. Here's the thing. Now let's pull the ingredients from the design system to actually see what it can look like based on the conversations and things we've mapped out, right? For the problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. And like sometimes or very often, you wouldn't be able to do everything 100% the right way, right? Because of timelines, constraints, and whatever. For example, the thing that happened in the real world is like a ship got stuck in the canal, and now like 6 to 9 months delay on everything shipping around the world. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Companies need to adjust on whatever it is they make and produce. But then you and I, on the day-to-day, it should feel like nothing happened.
Yeah.
People have solved problems in using things that maybe they have to go outside their systems for.
Yeah.
But the thing that is important is when you have to be very intentional when you kind of do those things. And there's a promise you make to your future self that you would come back and make it better. So the next time you run into this, it won't be as tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the small continuous improvement stuff that's outlined in things like Atomic Habits and the Toyota production system and anything else. So the idea of continuous improvement.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great because it kind of addresses, one of those things where it really everything ties back, it feels like, to the chicken or an egg thing where it's, like move forward and end of day, like it's an iterative, agile process.
Always.
And in no way does it need to be a silo. And, it's not a us versus them. It's a collaborative thing where it's evolving as you go. And there is no end. There is no perfection. Just do, right?
Yep. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So, with all this talk, kind of curious, design systems, right? Design system is a design system is a design system. But, kind of curious your perspective on, an org is working on a design system, right? The team's getting into it. curious how someone can truly innovate within their org to gain a competitive advantage when it comes to crafting a design system. Is there anything a person can do to make it unique and provide a competitive edge when
Absolutely.
comparing to other companies' design systems?
Yeah, absolutely. The very first thing I would say is know your stuff. By that, I don't mean know design systems in general. I mean know your particular company's products, surface areas, and people.
Yeah.
Right? So even though on the surface something like Webflow's designer is like a page builder, like what you get from Gutenberg, Wix, and so on, the requirements and needs of it is still very different and nuanced, right? So if I were to do design system things in that environment, I have to know those nuances, and I have to know how other people understand those nuances, right? So the takeaway from this is like you start by knowing your stuff, not purely from a design system perspective and whatever, but know the actual product and platform, processes, and potentially people. By people, I mean who are the different teams, how do they interact with this stuff, who owns what, who manages them. You have to kind of understand the organism that is designers, engineers, and product people trying to make things together.
Yeah.
And only when you have some understanding of that, again, don't like over index on trying to perfect this. So once you have some understanding of it, that's when you can actually articulate some standardizations of how people should do things, use things.
Yeah.
And that's when you can maybe add some of your design system, like the typical design system background of like, we should have a button, we should have an input field or whatever, like those guys. That's when you would introduce it, but you would shape it in the context that you are in.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
how you would gain a competitive advantage, know your stuff, make sure that it works with your stuff. Otherwise, you'll be shoving a generic box into, your org that may not be able to use it well or even understand how to use it in the first place. Another one is be very, very mindful of timelines, because you can work on this design system stuff for forever, right?
Yeah.
But you need to do things in a way where not only higher level people, but also your immediate peers, designers and engineers, where they can feel value faster.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll always be a us versus them thing. Like the distance between the design system team or people working on platform level stuff and product people stuff, like the greater the distance, the harder it is for product people stuff to adapt to the thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why?
Yeah.
I can just continue doing what I'm doing. It's fine. But until we can demonstrate value, the adoption rate will be lower, and the awareness level will be low. And that's kind of, I suppose, where design system as a product kind of comes in, because you would treat it like a little sub product within your company in order to gain awareness, add adoption, hit metrics, and all that kind of stuff. But the heart of it is understanding your environment and making sure you build stuff so other people can use it.
Yeah. And then understanding the environment and just going deep, and knowing the folks who are building. I do think it requires, to some degree, it doesn't require, but permission, right? Not permission in a literal sense where someone's like, you can now go, more of a, implicit permission to go forward, work with teams, understand the landscape and really get into things. And this is leading to a question of, org structure wise, I'm curious how, as an example, Webflow, and I know you're speaking for yourself, right? How things from an org perspective should be set up to foster that collaboration, so it doesn't feel like a us versus them. Platform work isn't, moving in a different clip than product work. And, it feels harmonious, right? Because to some degree, the org design is implicit permission to get things done. So I'm kind of just curious, what that looks like for you.
Yeah. The best example of this working out was the redesign we launched as part of Webflow Conf last year in October. That was like a complete overhaul of like how the designer product looked and the dashboard product looked. At least when it comes to like product surfaces, because Webflow.com and branding, that's sort of its own little thing a little bit. But so we had to work with every team that owned or contributed to those surface areas, right? Which is a lot. And the takeaway from that is like, you have to work close together. You have to work closely together. It's all right. Here's a great example. Okay.
Yeah.
And I am guilty of this as well. As a, the mandate or the idea of, use a design system comes from above or something, right?
Yeah.
And then the team's like, yeah, okay. It's sort of similar to like how every year you go to your dentist and the dentist is like, you should floss more. And you're like, yes. And you don't. And then next time you see your dentist, you have to come up with an excuse or lie of why you didn't floss more. It's like a thing that something you're supposed to do, but you don't because it's inconvenient or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But if you had, say, if your partner was a dentist, or if your partner did something in the world of dentistry, where there's more of a constant reminder and encouragement for you to floss, I bet you'd probably floss more during the year, and your dentist next year would probably be more happy.
Yeah.
So it's the tighter integration between the different teams and the materials that I think help with the adoption and usage of something like design systems or anything else.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like one of the many things that you'll need to think about and probably forget until it's too late. By too late, I just mean like the product's about to ship. Oh crap, we forgot to do design system team things. Hey, design system team, can you take a look at this and just like rubber stamp it, please?
Yeah.
That's too late.
Yeah. I'm curious, would that mean like, like practically, right? Does it mean like a product design system person is, integrated into a team? Like how do you get to that? I'm thinking about that analogy, right? Like if your dentist says, hey, floss, and you do it like once a year before your next dentist appointment, right? And they can clearly see that, you don't floss. Whereas your partner, like you mentioned, maybe your partner, like you said, is a dentist, flosses every night. And it's just like, come on, like, honey, get on it, floss. You need to, like, it's good practice. That partnership, you're seeing the person daily, you're seeing them floss their teeth, right? Like how can an org, create that relationship where there's a tight coupling between the people who are building the system, the people who are leveraging the system. And there's a constant reminder of, hey, use the system. We've got it.
Yeah. It's very, I would say, in my opinion, it's very difficult or much more difficult within the world of remote work than physical work. Because physical work, you can just look over your shoulder and notice, hey, I notice you're not really building that. Let me pair with you and like, you just solve the problem together, right? It is that just-in-time interaction between two people, and then one person has like a light bulb moment of, oh, I didn't know this thing existed. I will do this from now on, right?
Yeah.
So in remote work, the only thing that most companies can kind of leverage, besides like pairing, is like they come to us, like they reach out in a generic design system channel with a question, hey, I'm building this thing, what do you think?
Yeah.
Or somehow the design system team notices, and that's usually often too late. Or they're like brought in to consult at some vague time. So in my opinion, you need to have more interactions with people.
Yeah.
And I have, well, like my team has a solution for that. Still work in progress, but it works out pretty well. And it is basically to simulate if I'm sitting next to you and I notice a problem, let me like help you thing. And what happens is, there's a custom script I wrote, right? That for every single GitHub PR that is created, it combs through all the changes and it looks for stylistic and component related things that may not be the best. Like they're maybe adding 17 pixels for some random reason, stuff like that, right? All that stuff gets figured out, and if it's not great, it gets logged somewhere. And then within my team, the engineers, we have a weekly rotation where we look at the logs every day. And then we'll see the exact PR. We'll go to the PR. We'll look at it and go like, hey, I noticed that you're not doing this thing. We have this particular component that can help you here and provide just-in-time support that way. And the outcome of that is, especially for the folks who are kind of more enthusiastic or bought into this thing, like they don't make those same mistakes anymore. In fact, we've seen them help their other teammates with those things before we even get there. That is measurable improvement, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of integration back and forth, let's work together thing I'm talking about.
Yeah. That is awesome. Yeah, it's what I'm kind of here. Exactly. You fall to the level of your systems,
That's it.
right? Yeah, that's wild. Just because, it all feels like it ties back to habit, that just in time thing, right? Creates a positive flywheel and feedback loop that leads to positive behavior, which in turn leads to, value, business value, doing things the right way, ensuring there's consistency. Yeah.
And this one is, and the nice thing about this is like, it's automated, or a lot of it is automated, right? So it's like less for us to kind of do, and we're just like signaled when it's time to do a thing. And it kind of solves the, is it my responsibility to go to you or you to come to us or whatever? It just makes that part a little easier. And there's been no negative to that from what I can see. Unfortunately, I don't know how to do that from a design perspective, because
just got to get it a Figma.
Maybe design crits and stuff like that can help, but that world to me is still, I'm not sure, because I've been focused largely on engineering.
Which is awesome. I mean, I just want to like pause and highlight that, like that's such a Q thing, which is awesome, right? Like creating a script to, identify when things don't go accordingly, to then have a conversation. Like, that's awesome.
You don't even know. So this script, it does more than that. So the reason how it's able to know things of that detail is it literally, like, it understands what components are. It understands how you style them, right? So if you think about Figma components, you have variants, so you can pass in certain variants. It knows that information too. It also knows the code file of where that thing is. So now if you can imagine, if this script knows every component in every code file and is able to classify these components as like general UI things as buttons, inputs, and whatever, then wouldn't it be great if there was like detailed analytics where you can see every single component, every prop, every value within your entire code base in aggregate? And that's what I built for us anyway. So down to the line number, I can see like this particular note use this particular title with this value right here. If I can see an aggregate in our code base, 6% of them are notes components. That's pretty high. We should probably do something about that. And within the 6% of notes, let's say 2%. Well, the notes has been converted over for us. I apologize. Let me use button. I believe 6% of our code base uses buttons of some kind. Let's say 50% of it is using the old stuff. We want them to use the new stuff. Okay. So let me look at the old stuff. Where are all the props? Where are all the values? We should probably do something about that. It affects these areas. Cool. Let's convert 50% of this over, which may be like 1,000 instances, right? That level of detail is something, it changed the world for me. Because
I need some of that at my org. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, so what I'm also kind of hearing you say is, there's teams building a thing, and then there's kind of this retroactive aspect of, the design system team where, once you can do an audit, you can identify, areas that are still on old componentry, and you can deploy fresh ones to those instances without actually getting in there, right? So
and like, what do you call it? Usually with audits, if you're lucky, you can write a script to figure that out, but oftentimes it's a manual thing, right? You comb through the code, this one's old, let me like make a note of it or whatever. But for us now with this setup, it's literally opening a dashboard and going like, this is 20%, this is 17, and whatever. And here's an interesting thing. Knowing these numbers, you can more accurately make projections of like, if we were to refactor all of this, our coverage boost would go from 20 to 25. I feel like that's worth it. The level of effort is medium, so we should probably do it. Cool. Add that as an OKR, something like that.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes a lot easier to have those conversations and to know exactly what to do in those circumstances. Yeah.
Man, that is awesome. I mean, talking about mapping it to value, like, there you go. There you go. That is
it
awesome.
doesn't tell the whole story still, because like, just because the components are there, it still doesn't mean that people are building right. Right?
Yeah.
And some things that, at least for now, help with that would be the just-in-time awareness from the design system team for when people create PRs and that whole process.
Yeah.
So I haven't solved all of it, but I feel like I'm getting better at
I think it's
the story.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, because overall it actually it has me thinking of products and just building products, or, even marketing, right? In general, there's a qualitative and quantitative aspect where the quantitative end, like, you can see the numbers and the numbers are telling one story, but you truly don't know until you get in there and like get to the why the numbers are doing the things that they're doing, right? So to tie that back to what you shared, right? It's like this script, this system enables you to analyze quantitatively, right?
Yeah.
But you still need those just-in-time moments to get in there to provide that qualitative aspect to complete the story.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Dude, first, that was amazing. Like, I'm pretty jealous of the script. Yeah. Pretty jealous of the script. That's really cool. Because that probably saves like a lot of time and just human hours and calories.
It certainly has. Yeah. It definitely helped make the thing like the reskin a lot easier, because I had deep insight into what was using what and what we need to think about.
Yeah. Nice. So, I want to be conscious of time. I know we've got like 15 minutes left. Principles, so we've been talking a lot about just design systems, like what is it, or what it is at the core. Really love the analogy of, cooking food. And then we dove into just, how to have a competitive edge, got into the script and had great conversations there. And curious, what are some core principles or philosophies you would recommend folks involved in design system work embrace, to really get to a place where, they're doing it well. It's less about, the component, and it's really about the art, right? If you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the idea of continuous improvement and like the whole atomic habits thing is very, very good. Like that would be the number one principle of anything. Just always try to make something better. Another one that I think is, I don't know how you would simplify it down to a principle, would be this is something maybe it's more unique to me, and that is I often look outside the box for solutions. So all the stuff that I've talked to you about today, like it's really from me analyzing and learning about the world of manufacturing, automotive, and animation and film production and whatever, right? It's me, because for me, it's like these folks have already solved these problems and beyond from a basic perspective, right? So it's like, why don't we just borrow those ideas? Because they've already figured it out. Let's just borrow those ideas and bring it here. And a really good example of this, and I may be misremembering this story, so you can Wikipedia this, but it's the creation, for example, the creation of the Disney FastPass system. One of the executives at the time, I believe, was on the snow trip, and they saw how, like, the ski lifts, usually you have two lines. One is individual riders, and one is group riders, right? How they're able to complement the flow of getting people up a hill when you combine these two together. So he took that idea, and then he took the idea of restaurants and how restaurants have reservations, combined it together to create what we know today as a Disney FastPass system, which is something that's adopted beyond the world of Disney. So I love stuff like that, where people are able to take existing ideas from different places, combine it together to solve a problem, because maybe the principle is this. If you already had the solution in your space, then you wouldn't have this problem. So probably look outside. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, look outside, and then the first one around atomic habits, I'm forgetting at the moment.
Continuous improvement.
Con
The idea of
continuous
continuous
improvement.
improvement. Yeah.
Yeah,
Every
yeah. I
day,
love the.
do what you
Yeah,
can.
yeah. I love both because just as general practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like looking outside to me, I think a lot about that quote. Reading history or something along those lines. You're standing on the shoulders of giants,
Giants? Yeah, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So looking outside to some degree isn't just looking at today, right? And other industries. You're also
Yeah.
looking to the past, right? What's been
Oh
done.
man, like I'm laughing because it was like a very particular example that came to mind. Um, huh. So I was putting together resources to kind of simplify really important information really quickly, right? I believe this is during the reskin time, where it just had to write documentation and whatnot. So, me as an aside, I'm like a World War II buff. I like things from that era for some reason.
Yeah,
And in my archives, digital archives, I have a collection of declassified military documents, PDFs.
yeah,
It's a thing I have. I don't know why, but I was looking through them through the through the perspective of like, how did they back in the day before computers were invented
yeah,
understand and execute on hypercritical information where if you did it wrong, thousands and thousands of people will die, right? So
yeah,
the stakes are very high,
yeah,
and that helped me understand how to format documents better so that they are crystal clear. Um, and if I can simplify that, it is they use a lot of numbered bullets and they use tables a lot. So it's like
yeah,
a lot of information condensed down really quickly.
yeah,
And if you for some reason want to go into the past and look at these classified World War II documents, that's something you might pick up. Everything
yeah.
has a number on it. That way, my guess is during a meeting they can be like, go to page 3,
Oh,
uh,
yeah,
section 24, item B, and everybody
yeah,
can just jump to it, right?
yeah,
So it's things like that that like I observe and pick up and kind of integrate into
yeah.
my work.
This is a huge aside. Are you still doing your notes? Do you still like, I know you have like the
Oh
Obsidian
man,
notes
oh man,
and you were sharing it publicly for a while, right?
yeah, I still am. So here's the thing. This is, I mean, I have leveled up so many from there. So I can check when I got this, but sometime last year, beginning of last year, I started doing this thing where I noticed that when I was on meetings, I would take notes for sure. Every meeting I'm on, I'll write notes, but I'd only capture what the other person said. I never
Mm,
captured what I said.
yeah.
Otherwise, I can't talk and
Okay.
type at the same
It's
time.
hard.
It's hard. So, as a cheat, what I did was I went on Facebook Marketplace
Uh-huh.
and I bought a Google Pixel 4, which is an older phone, but Google Pixel 4a. And the Google Pixel 4a, which I got for $150, has this app that is unique to Pixel, which is called Recorder. And
Mm.
Recorder has live text transcriptions for everything you
What?
say.
Yeah.
So in every meeting, I have a separate lavalier mic that captures into this. So I
Yeah.
have literally everything I've said in meetings
This.
organized into Obsidian to complement the notes that I take. So I have a complete picture of what happened in that meeting.
Ah, man. Yeah, that's amazing, dude. Just because, going back to the very start of the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just Q being amazing at just systems and, process and capturing, just everything. Like true to form, man, on brand.
Thanks.
I love it. Yeah.
Thanks. So yeah, I just have, and I also have the what do you call it, audio file as well. At this point, there's gigabytes of it in my Google Drive.
Yeah. Do you have,
um,
I'm curious, like having just this database of, content and context.
mhm.
Curious if there's kind of like, if you have plans for all of it, do you like comb through for a specific day? Is it more of just like, keeping record?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is record keeping. Like I kind of don't go through it, to be honest, most of the time. But it's nice to know that I have it. Right?
Yeah.
That aside, practically, how has it changed my how I operate? Well, in a way, I don't forget anything anymore.
Mm.
Right? Because I
Yeah.
can always look at something to know what I said, what they said, what action item I got, whatever. And what was that quote? I'm just looking at this right now. Like in business, the two most expensive words are "I forgot." It's from Jim
Yeah.
Quach. So
Yeah.
I try to eliminate that as much as I can.
Yeah.
There's
It's really
usually
cool.
never a time where I say I forgot.
Yeah. Yeah. A random thing that if you ever do, I'd love to know what happens is taking the content and dropping it into Chat
GPT.
GPT or
I have
something like
already.
that. Yeah, what did it say? What did it summarize? Was it just like,
Yeah,
yeah, here's yeah.
I like doing it by hand because it's another point of contact I have with my stuff
Yeah.
to like think, reflect, do all that kind of thing. So I do that. The most recent thing I've done to my world of note taking is there's this concept called interstitial journaling where it's similar to the bullet journal. It expands beyond that, but the idea is like you would write things as they happen over time throughout the day. If you're fancy, you'll add a timestamp to it, right? So you know at like 3:55 p.m. right now, I'm talking to Ola, something like that. I've created a system for myself from both my Mac OS and my iPhone using Mac OS shortcuts and iOS shortcuts that lets me enter all that stuff in really, really quickly as it happens throughout the day. And all of it basically gets populated into a Google Sheet, which is my database of all that stuff. And then I wrote some other code that I can feed today's entries into GPT, and then I can ask it, what was the most interesting thing that happened to me today? And it can tell me, because these are literally my entries going into there.
Yeah.
And because I have the data, I can be like, okay, how many times did I talk to this person this year? And the insight I got from that is I probably should do things more, do certain things less, things like that. So
That is
a
very
very
cool.
direct thing that has changed for me being more observant of my patterns and things I do is I'm spending more quality time with my partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Kind of feels like, Chat GPT can become, an advisor, coach,
Yeah.
or just someone like a planner, right? Like
Yeah.
auditing
The
and
thing
just
I actually
providing
use it
feedback.
for a lot, and this sounds kind of strange, is I talk to it because on the iPhone, you can have voice chats with it, right? You can talk to it and it can talk back to you. So what I
Yeah.
like doing is like, especially when I'm trying to ideate and think through very abstract things, is I'll have like notes or something as I'm like writing things down, mind mapping usually, and I'll ask it a question, something like, "How do folks in the automotive industry do this thing? What processes do they have?" And they'll like talk back to me. And the interesting thing I found from that is like, I believe that you think about and process data and information differently when you're speaking versus when you're writing or when you're typing.
Yeah.
So it's like a
Yeah.
different way for me to understand information. And then because it's talking versus me reading, it's just naturally slower, which is good because it gives me more time to think and process, right?
Adjust.
Then
Yeah.
okay, cool. Automotive stuff. Okay. How do people in the restaurant industry handle certain blah, blah, blah? They'll say a thing. And then I'll be like, okay, how are both of these industries related? It'll give me a thing. And then I'll like start connecting the dots from these like abstract ideas. And the thing that's really helpful for me is like when I'm able to say things back in my own words, like, oh, in the restaurant industry, they have something known as an expediter or an expo to make sure everything gets done on time. This is similar to the just-in-time Kanban system that they use in the world of manufacturing and the automotive industry. Is this correct? And they'll be like, yes, no, maybe.
Yeah.
And they'll explain it a little bit more, right? So it's like I don't know. It's like if you had a tutor or something where you're able to just say random abstract ideas to, and they can kind of help you connect those dots. So I've been using it for that.
Yeah, that is very cool. Yeah, I heard about, talking to Chat GPT via the app on your iPhone. I know it's not as easy as just clicking a button. You've got to set it up some way so you can.
No. You literally start a chat here, like here, right? Let's demo this live on the pod. Okay, this here.
Yeah.
And I think I pay for it, but then I think you can do it with the free account. You can. I use GPT 3.5. So currently doing a podcast with my friend Ola.
That sounds like a fun project. Podcasting can be a great way to share your thoughts, ideas, and conversations with a wider audience. If you have any questions about podcasting or need assistance with anything related to it, feel free to ask. Enjoy your podcasting session with Ola.
Right.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like natural speech, which makes it a little easier to talk to. And you can interrupt it if you just want to like talk through things. So
yeah,
that's what that's like.
I am gonna play with that later on today.
Yeah.
Because usually walking around just thinking of stuff, but I'll usually just take a note and then circle back.
So and like all that is captured. It's like text is captured in the history, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, I forgot to note it down or whatever. It's all there, including their responses. Very cool. Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's like my little hack, I guess.
Yeah, I'm taking that. And for folks listening, highly recommend you try it out and let us know. So, we're getting close to the time, and I just want to we wrap up with two questions. One really is, for those just folks who are working on design systems, are in teams, working close to folks who are working on design systems. Curious what any key takeaways or practices you'd suggest they adopt. I know we talked about, just continuous growth and, learn from around. I'm totally paraphrasing here.
Sure, that's fine.
But yeah. What are things you would recommend or suggest folks adopt when it comes to just building design systems or folks who work with design system teams?
I mean, this is an oversimplification, but just do it. Don't try to figure out how to write the perfect documentation. Just open up a Google Doc and write some stuff down. It can be scrappy, it can be bullet points, whatever. It's much easier to work with something than nothing. So it's like just start doing the thing. And then eventually over time you'll like refactor and you'll like make it better and whatever. So just start it. Just start doing something. You want to improve documentation, start writing stuff. You want to improve process, observe what processes are, write them down. You improve component stuff, cool. Refactor some of your components to have certain tokens. Whatever it is, just do it.
Yeah. Just get going. Just jump in.
Just get going.
That's the only way.
Just start doing it. And the other thing of it too is while you're doing it, in the back of your mind, think, how could I have done this better? And then work on the process as part of you doing the thing.
Yeah.
And that's how you get continuous improvement. Yeah.
Nice. And then the last one is, we've Atomic Habits, definitely a book that, everyone should check out. So curious if you just have any other book recommendations that, you'd recommend folks to check out if they want to learn more about.
So the thing that, the book that started a lot of the thinking of the ways in which we work, for me, is Every Tool is a Hammer by Adam Savage of Mythbuster fame. Very, very good book. I've listened to it like 3 times. Another one I'd recommend in addition to that would be a book called 2 Second Lean. It's by Paul Akers. He is the CEO of FastCap. And that's where I learned a lot of the how it is manufacturing think about work from this guy. So, man, if you're to distill me into 3 books, it'd basically be those.
Nice.
It may be a little bit of design of everyday things, the one that everyone always points to.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a norm, right? So yeah, love it. Cool, man. So we're at the end. We're at the end of episode 1.
Yay, we did it.
Yeah, we got to the end. This was awesome. This was really cool. I've got the podcast bug now. Like, this was actually like very fun. And it was just great talking,
Yeah. And I have to hop into a meeting, but I'll end with this kind of thing. So behind me, you can see that there's a wall of my stuff. It's not a Zoom background. These things are real.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is, and if you're talking about design systems, that's the design system of all my office things. It's a standardization of all the materials I use in my office. Over there is a shelf of some of my office things. I brought out one of these boxes. It's for example, Energel 07. This is a where you can get my standard pens. They look like this.
Yeah.
Next to it are the refills, right? So there's a very intentional reason why I chose this particular pen. But that aside, so I know where it is I can get more pens if I need to. But within this pen box, there's some interesting things here. There's a Kanban card that tells me about the pen, and the QR code of where I can buy more of them is an Amazon link. So if I ever am running low, scan the QR code or add it to cart on Amazon and never run out of stuff. And I've deployed this throughout my entire home.
That is amazing.
Coffee, Head and Shoulders, whatever, toothpaste, all of them got little cards. So I never run out of stuff.
That is very cool. Yeah. I mean, overall, folks, whoever, I don't know who's going to listen, right? It might be a ton of folks. It might be a few folks, but I think that's like next level systems thinking, and that's what I really just, whenever we talk, just greatly appreciate about our conversations, right?
Yeah.
Just thinking about ways to improve everyday life.
Yeah.
And just, get it to a place where, it's systemized and actually believe, again, you fall to the level of your systems, right?
Exactly.
So you can take the thinking out of a lot of things,
right.
So you can focus on
how it
bigger
affects
things.
The creation aspect of it is like, I'm very familiar with the feel of this pen. Like people are into stationery, like it's a thing. Like pens have to feel a certain way, not only in your hand, but how it writes on paper. Because I've like identified this particular pen as like, this is my pen. I never have to think about the feel of it anymore. That's out of the window when it comes to me making stuff. I just focus on the idea and writing. I don't need to worry about where to get more, whatever. All that stuff has been abstracted, right? So now I can focus on producing.
I love it.
Yeah.
The furthest I've gotten is just I have a lot of black t-shirts and sweatpants.
Yeah.
That's my system.
Yeah.
When it comes to dressing. Cool.
When it comes to clothing, I mean, I'm pretty much standardized on clothes too, but here's the next level. Here's the next level thing that you can do that's very simple. In my closet, I share it with my partner, right?
Yeah.
There is a specified number of clothes hangers dedicated to me because I don't want my wardrobe to increase. It is a direct constraint of how many articles of clothes I have.
Yeah.
But in order to help us fold, I put pink tape on all my hangers. So I know exactly what clothes will go to what hanger and where.
That is very, yeah.
Yeah.
And is there for like a deeper meaning to the pink tape, or is it just,
It's the particular brand of gaff tape I've chosen for all my stuff. So it's on my hat.
Okay.
It's
Nice.
on this
cool
pen cap. It's on this.
Nice.
And the idea comes from a YouTube video I saw from Adam Savage, where he talked about in the trades, people bring their tools to the job site, and often tools get mixed up. So what they do is that they spray paint their tools or something to make them unique. So that way tools never get mixed up, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really neat. But then also there's like a branding aspect of this too, where if you see something pink, whether it's on this or a MacBook charger, it's mine.
Yeah.
It's cute. Still take it.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, dude, it was such a pleasure talking, and again, really just appreciate you being being open to jumping on this call and just having a chat. I don't really want to call it a episode, right? It's just us talking.
Chat with Q and Ola.
Yeah. So just excited that got the first one in the books, and greatly appreciate you hopping on, man. Likewise.